law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting is of the Town of Chelmsford Finance Committee. We conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information, the general guidelines of the remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website, www.chelmsfordma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by accessing Chelmsford Telemedia via www.chelmsfordtv.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can be adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Please note, if you'd like to watch this meeting but do not plan to present to the committee or speak during public comment, we ask that you please do so at live.chelmsfordtv.org or on your television, Comcast Channel 99, Verizon Channel 37. By doing so, you will help reduce demand on the online platform. Thank you. This is a reminder for the chat room. The chat room, all messages, including those that are labeled as private, will become part of the public record, just as a note and reminder to everyone. First on the agenda this evening, we have approval of minutes from March 25th, 2021. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 25th as presented.
And I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right. Moving right along, we have public comment. Seeing as I have no public other than anticipated individuals, we can move right along. We will have a public comment section at the end of our vote as well. Moving right along, we have a review, discussion, and vote on recommendations for our fiscal year 2022 budget and Springtown meeting warrant articles. So, Kathy, are you up for it? Excellent. Let me pull up.
I've got my coffee.
You've got your coffee. Excellent.
Somewhere I might need some amounts, but I think I've got all the most of the amounts. But do you have the document for me to read from? Or
I'm gonna put that up as a shared document. Give me 1 second.
That grinder pump article is going to be a doozy.
I think we could probably do that as written. I would.
You're going to give her the stormwater article.
Yeah.
Yes.
I recommend on all those articles, maybe we want to do as just a general synopsis as written.
Yeah. Thank you.
For everyone's sanity. Share. Okay. Our first article is a report by town officers and committees, and there is no action on that. Article 2 is the first article. Do we have any action on that, Paul?
Not at this time. I think we will as we get closer to town meeting, and the town accountant has had an opportunity to see how we're closing out the fiscal year. So as typical, you generally would not have a recommendation on this article as you put your booklet to publication.
Certainly. All right, so we will take no action on this article, subject to us meeting before town meeting if necessary for any further articles or adjustments during that time. Article 3.
No action on Article 3.
We're just shooting right along. Article 4.
I'll make a motion that we accept Article 4 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money to fund the town fiscal 2022 assessment of Neshoba Valley Technical School District or Act. Therein, the sum being $3,721,402.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Nothing other than to say I think it was a relatively straightforward budget presentation, as will be the case I think with most things we discussed tonight. There wasn't a lot of abnormal things to look at or discuss. So that's my only observation.
Am I correct in remembering that we have an increase this year from our enrollment, but a decrease overall from the general enrollment?
Exactly. Neshoba has a decrease in enrollment, but Chelmsford has an increase in our share percentage went up.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't misremembering from last year. So I know we had an adjustment last year. And I, at that time, had a question about where our percentage would change.
Yeah, ours
We're nowhere near
went
it.
up. Ours went up, and Townsend had virtually nothing, if I remember correctly. But
And
they said, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please, I interrupted.
They said that was an anomaly and it would change. The only other thing was the fact that their teachers actually did not seek a raise, but actually froze their salaries for the year, which I think is quite commendable, given what we all were going through.
Agreed. That's good point, Dave. That's worth pointing out.
Certainly. All right. Hearing no further discussion. All those in favor? And for these, I'm going to start doing roll call just for Pam's own benefit. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. So that's 5 with 2 absences at this time, Pam. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Article 5.
I make a motion that we accept Article 5 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money as may be required to defray charges for the operation of the Chelmsford Public School System for the fiscal period July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. The sum being $65 million.
All right, second.
Discussion. So this is an adjusted number over the initial number that's going to be put into the budget. It's nice to see all the state numbers coming in where they're coming in, and no big shortfalls or anything of that currently. Knock on wood.
I did read an article in the Lowell Sun today about money being extra money being appropriated education fund to help those communities who were, adversely affected by the pandemic, which is code for, not Chelmsford. So that's interesting. I don't know how that will shake out.
Okay. Again, it was a pretty straightforward budget. I didn't see any surprises. We didn't have any real adjustments other than that initial adjustment we had on the figure amount from the January 11th presentation to the actual presentation and voted budget of the school committee. Any further discussion?
Just be nice to get kids back in school.
Yeah.
I drove past McCarthy today and there was kids outside. I'm assuming it was either break or recess, and it was just nice to see kids at a school.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, I'll call the vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes as well. So that's 5 with 2 absences currently. Article 6.
Article 6, I make a motion that we accept Article 6 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds such sums of money as may be required to defray charges to the town's general government operation for the fiscal period July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022, or act in relation thereto. The amount being $144,497,677.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, that would be all the 20 line items that were submitted. You remember we vote the line item budget at town meeting by line item. So it would be the 20 line items that we presented at your hearing. I mean, I don't think you want me to read all 20 line items, but
No.
that's how.
No.
But that's how it'll be presented in the motion on the
Of
floor of
course.
town meeting.
Yeah. And we've met with all those departments. We've had all of them come in, and we've done further reviews, but with them as well.
Would you like me to change the motion to say included all 20 budgets, something to that effect, totaling?
Yeah. As presented, yeah, as presented.
Okay, I take back we'll just table the previous motion and my current,
Withdraw the motion.
I withdraw the previous motion. And
Can I ask, Kathy, I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Sorry, before you read that again. We, on Article 2, which references Articles 4, 5, and 6, we passed on. Does that mean that we're still voting on 6, even though it's part of 2?
So,
No, but
Eric, those are from the previous fiscal year 21. So those would be
Gotcha.
the fiscal year 21 budget. It's the same articles because we try in the budget in the town manager's presentation tries to follow the same articles every year so that there's no confusion from one year to the next.
Which clearly I was confused, so that's just me. I'm good. All right, thank you.
All right, Kathy.
okay. Make a motion that we accept Article 6 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer available funds of such sum of money as may be required to defray charges of the town general government. The 20 line items presented to the Finance Committee for the period of July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, or act in relation thereto. The total amount for 20 line items is $144,497,677.
Second.
All right, now discussion.
The only, just because I don't want Pam to have an error in the book, that aggregate total includes the school budgets that you voted previously.
Yes.
So that, and where we vote these now in separate articles, it's really just over $71 million. I mean, I can read it for you if you want to know the funding sources and so forth, but the aggregate number that Kathy had includes the 2 articles you just voted for, the Neshoba Tech and the Chelmsford schools. So I just don't want somebody to look for $144 million appropriation under this article. It's really the summation of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount should be 70 million.
What I can read it to you. We're going to raise and appropriate $68,063,050. We're going to transfer transfer 6,000 from the Wetlands Protection Act revolving fund. We're going to transfer $2,326,128 from the Sewer Capital Improvement Fund. Transfer $668,671 from the sewer user revenue. Transfer $290,595 from stormwater management user revenue. Transfer $74,651 from the cable television license revenue. Transfer $46,476 from the excluded debt bond premium reserve, and transfer $174,700 from the child care revolving fund to those 20 line items. So as you can see, that number is just over 70 million when you add it all up.
Paul, do we have those set figures somewhere? And I can't recall if we had in a certain presentation altogether, other than in the actual breakdown per department.
Probably not, because what ends up happening is you've got line items that come from different departments. For example, like the community services one includes the council on aging, but also the board of health and so forth. So yeah, you don't have that. I don't think that was formally presented in the breakdown, but John and I assembled that for the traditional 20 line items for the town.
If we could get that,
Sure.
just for book purposes, because that
Sure.
does the book, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
John, if you could get, we make a note of that, we'll get that out to them tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion? No, like I said previously, before we changed the vote, we've met with all the departments, mostly through Zoom. We've had them present to the town, to the finance committee. I think we had a pretty thorough discussion about them. We've reviewed on our own. I am perfectly fine with voting for this article.
Yeah, I echo that. I think, but I feel like, you're approving $70 million. There should be some discussion, but we went through all this department by department already. Essentially flat across the board with some minor blips. So no surprises to my knowledge. So I'm fine as well.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, I will do a roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes. This silly thing, it doesn't like me.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Amina, just as a note, if you hold down on your space bar, it should unmute you temporarily.
Yeah, that's what I was doing, but I'm scrolling through my own things because your thing
Got it.
appeared on my screen. And because I'm on that, when I hit the space bar, it doesn't do anything.
Well, yes, that's true. If you're not in the actual program, it will not do it.
I have to touch because I have the window side by side. I have to touch the window and then it'll work.
All right, just trying to help.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So that's 5, Pam, that's 5 and 2 absences. Article 7.
Article 7, I make a motion that we accept Article 7 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds such sums of money to be used as a reserve fund at the discretion of the Finance Committee for the fiscal year 2022 as provided in General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 6, or an act in relation thereto. The sum is $400,000.
I second.
Discussion. This is the typical amount. It's the end of the year, and because the budget goes up every year, it becomes a little bit smaller percentage every year. It has been used in past years. It's been a good emergency source, and it becomes part of free cash at the end of the year. Funds that don't get used get poured into free cash in our fall town meeting. So I'm fine with proceeding with this.
Do you happen to know the last time it was adjusted? That's a fair point about as the budget gets bigger, this gets smaller and smaller. I mean, I don't think there's been no issue with the amount in the 3-ish years I've been here. I just didn't know if it's something that's been adjusted, every so often.
I'm in year 7, and it hasn't been adjusted since I've been here.
Okay.
I think it's been about a decade, John. Do you think?
I was going to say about 10 years roughly.
Yeah.
Previous to that, the traditional amount was about 150,000 before it went to 400.
Yeah.
But we found 150 was just inadequate.
We have not exhausted it all in the 7 years that I've been on the board. We've come close. There have been a couple of years we've had to use it for emergency needs, but again, it's for usually there's a situation where either the issue that's present can be heard at a upcoming town meeting or part of a special town meeting where there's more than one thing that's being done, so that there's no need to approach the fund. It can be handled in that capacity through a multi-article special town meeting or at a town meeting itself. It's just really for emergency and unexpected circumstances that happen throughout the year. And as I said, in the 7 years I've been here, it's never been exhausted.
All right. We'll put that under the category of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm good.
Fair enough. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go for a roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
that's 6 with 1 absence. All right, Article 8.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept Article 8 to see if the town will vote to appropriate a certain sum of money for the following capital projects. As the list being information technology, security system, $50,000. For the municipal administration, subtotal is $50,000. For the senior center parking lot repaving, $316,031. For the Adams Library computer replacement, $37,920. Carpet replacement, $25,000, and the generator, $145,000. Community service subtotal, $523,951. For the police, the electronic traffic signs at $32,000. Fire service 2 plow truck replacement, $76,078. Staff vehicle replacement, $61,000. Mechanics hydraulic lift, $150,000. Subtotal for public safety, $319,235. Highway sidewalk construction, $350,000. Roadway improvements, $400,000. Sidewalk snow removal equipment, $170,000. Truck replacement, $75,000. Public works subtotals, $995,000. And then we have municipal facilities, the shop treatment plant upgrade, $110,000. Replace vehicles with 3 hybrids, $165,000. OSHA roof safety ladders and grates, $45,000. Center for the Arts building insulation, $49,730. The municipal facilities subtotal is $369,730. Moving on, we have Byam, Harrington, and Westlands, the door hardware upgrade totaling $547,156. Harrington flooring replacement, $29,184. Center restroom partitions, $30,360. Westlands kitchen renovation, $227,700. South Row kitchen ventilation, $75,900. In Parker Middle School, the lift elevator for $127,000. The school subtotal is $1,037,300. School technology, we have Byam, Center, Harrington, and South Row. Security and surveillance upgrades totaling $598,758. School technology subtotals $598,758. The grand total for the capital projects is $3,893,974. And then raise and appropriate and transfer appropriate available funds from the general stabilization fund and/or borrow a certain sum of money or combination thereof to fund said projects, and to further authorize the town manager to enter into lease or purchase agreements on such terms and conditions as the town manager deems appropriate in the best interests of the town in excess of 3 years or act in relationship thereto.
A second.
Discussion. Kathy, that was a Herculean effort.
Thank you.
This was pretty well vetted. I wanted to thank Amina again for serving as our liaison to that committee, and for John Souza for chairing that committee. We went over this in our first meeting back in February and discussed the various capital plan items. It's a well thought out and thorough plan. It keeps up the same rate every year and addresses the projects that we can address on a schedule, so that we're not seeing surprises in the future. So I am perfectly fine with all of the items on this.
I would just like to add that I'm particularly pleased about the generator at the library. I think that's really a good forward thinking position to help our citizens in the event of some sort of, catastrophe. So I think that's a great idea.
And of course, I'm pleased with what's going on at the senior center with the parking lot. That's a major effort and I appreciate it.
I had, I think this is I'm fine with this list. And I had taken a look and I couldn't find it at least in this recent kind of budget cycle. I may have missed it, but I know we have a kind of a multi-year projection for this. I'm just curious because I know I'm expecting next year we're going to see at least one big ticket item on here, and that's probably going to be a fire engine, which is probably a fourth of that $4 million. I'm just curious, or I'm not. Is that something that, John? Is there a multi-year thing that you could maybe send out just if it's available, just for information?
Yes, I can send that out to the committee. That's something that we will in the second half of the budget that's published for town meeting. That'll be published in there so the public can see that as well. It'll show the FY22 budget and the next 4 years after that.
Okay, thank you.
And correct me if I'm mistaken, John, but I think that may have been part of that January 11th meeting where there was some discussion about what the capital would be.
We may have touched on it. I will say when I do send it out, FY23 is going to look like a steep amount. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say it's probably about 6 million plus. You have to keep in mind when you review that it's a little bit skewed because each year we need like the help of department heads, especially the DPW director and facilities director to rebalance things, if you will, because one of the big projects in addition to the fire engine is the tennis court resurfacing for the high school. It hasn't received funding yet, but that's like 1.2 million. So there's some big ticket items in there that may have to be rebalanced. So I just didn't want you to have sticker shock when you look at the FY23, and then it tends to then go down to about 4 to 4.5 million the other years, but I'll send that out to everyone.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Take a roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
yes,
All right. That's 6-0 with one absence. Article 9. Let's get there.
No action under Article 9. We're hoping to fund the HVAC at the schools through the federal American Rescue Plan Act when those monies become available to us in next month.
Excellent. And the feeling is that the first half of funds or a portion of them will be sufficient to cover what we need in order to take care of that.
Yeah. In fact, there's an update being presented to the school committee and so forth. But yes, things are well under control, and that's really great because with the students coming back full time in the elementary this week, all the systems are operational, balanced, fully functional, and meeting the standards. And the same will be when the middle school and high school goes back later this month.
Excellent.
Paul, do we have to go back to town meeting to spend those funds?
At this point, it doesn't appear to be the case. But we're not. However, the Treasury Department is not scheduled to release the guidelines until May 10th. But at this point, it appears it'll be more in the form of a grant, similar to what happened about 13 years ago under the Stimulus Act. Those were grant monies, but we won't know for certain for another month. And if so, everybody will be scrambling. But it's really when it's coming in May, the only way applicable to this year would be to do it by grant monies. But again, I'll know with certainty next month.
Okay.
Excellent.
Paul, sorry, Jim, on that topic, Paul, if it's a grant, then how, is that spending funding directed by the select
Select
board?
board.
Are we involved? Select board, okay.
It'll be the select board, yeah. But with the kind of funding that you're talking about, it will be a community-wide effort involving the school committee, finance committee, select board, and others, because you're talking some serious funding here that really, is multi-year and cross-community.
Thank you.
I didn't know if there was some way we could word this simply saying that the funding would come from that direction and have it approved as part of town meeting now.
Again, we don't know the full nature of the funding source or the funding amount. And we know we have to account for it to the federal government, but we don't know how it's going to be treated with the state Department of Revenue. So I'd be hesitant to go there at this time. Again, you may need to meet prior to town meeting, and then we can address it at an earlier meeting in June once there is some clarity, if that's the case. But I just don't see how we get it into the book or action at this time.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So we can take no action on this. And again, I have a feeling we might have to have a meeting sometime in June to cover anything that's come up in the interim. So just everyone keep that in mind. This may not be our last meeting for the fiscal year. All right. And Pam, just to clarify, in case I missed it or misspoke, on Article 8, I was a yes vote. Article 10.
Before I start, I want to check on my number. I looked through my notes and I had two numbers. One presented as a $16,000, and I think it was 16,000, and later it said plus another 96,000. So is the correct amount 112,000, Paul?
It would have been, but the problem is that the problem keeps changing. So what I'm going to ask this evening for is $175,000, and the funding source be the 2021 Finance Committee Reserve Fund, the current fiscal year. If you're aware what's happened over there, we have installed monitoring wells, in accordance with that $96,000 plan. Unfortunately, when that work was taking place, they found some hazardous materials on site, which had to get removed and disposed of. One was an underground oil separator by the old highway building that was disconnected but buried under the bituminous concrete and full, roughly full. And then the other one was a barrel in the back field, which was similar to the barrels that were found there in 2008. And then since then, the select board has asked that the town do some scanning of the areas where the new temporary fire station is going to be at, as well as the area where that additional barrel was found. And then we're also getting a proposal to scan additional parts, if not the entire property. So at this point, I think a sound number would be 175,000. But again, you can see this is a fluid situation. But you're right, Kathy. But for what transpired within the last 2 weeks, we would have been at those original numbers that you spoke of.
Paul, have they started doing the scans for where the fire department's going to be relocated to?
Yeah, that work was done a couple of days ago. Preliminary results are very promising, but I think they're going out and doing some excavation on Monday. We think a few of the pings that were there were just like rebar. They seem very shallow. So again, and then the area in the back, there were a few more hits, but again, until you get out there, you don't know. I mean, the scanning is effective, but again, it just identifies, but you have to excavate to find out what exactly it is. And as I said, the indication, the front area is that it probably is rebar, just given the use of what was there prior in prior years, decades ago.
Okay.
So should I motion include that it's going to come from the Finance Reserve Fund?
Yes, please. The current fiscal year reserve fund. Yeah.
Current fiscal year.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can do it. I make a motion that we accept Article 10 to see if the town will vote to transfer from the Finance Reserve Fund the current fiscal year
175.
$175,000 for the investigation, reporting, remediation, other related costs pertaining to the presence of elevated level of per and polyfluoride substances, PFAS, that have been detected in groundwater monitoring wells located at the town-owned property at 54 Richardson Road or act in relationship thereto. Is that too kludgy? Want me to try it again?
No. Do I have a second?
I second.
Discussion. Polyfluoroalkyl, I think it is.
Yeah.
PFAS.
Yeah. PFAS works. Everyone calls it PFAS.
Yep.
Okay.
Any discussion? No, I understand. I understand it's a fluid. I watched the meeting of the and the presentation that was done. We want to get the because we also have the competing interest of the fire being relocated so they can work on the construction there. But you know, the watershed is important. It's our water source for North Chelmsford at that location, and so I understand the concern and then the fact that it's fluid because, again, as you mentioned, it's sonar is only so good until you actually do excavation for any pings. So hopefully those excavations are benign. Any further discussion? Seeing none, it'll be roll call. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Okay. Moving on to Article 11.
I'll make a motion that we accept Article 11 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer with available funds and or borrow a certain sum of money for the fiscal year 2022 budget to operate the sewer enterprise fund or act in relationship thereto. The amount being $4,384,397.
Second.
Discussion? That was pretty thorough.
Standard.
Yep, pretty standard, pretty thorough explanation. I would just note, Kathy, that we're voting to recommend instead of accept.
Okay, recommend. Okay, I apologize.
No, that's fine. I just so there no confusion. Yeah, I have no further discussion on this one. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita. Is that a yes?
Yeah.
And I'll
Yep.
vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 12.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 12 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer and available funds and or borrow a sum of money for the purchase of a vacuum truck for the DPW sewer division or act in relationship thereto, the amount being $485,000.
Second.
Discussion?
I think Gary and Steve did a good job on a couple of these articles coming up to explain the benefits. So, decent price tag for a vehicle, but I think that the benefits are supportable, and I'm for it.
Same. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 12.
13, I believe.
I'm sorry, Article 13. Sorry.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 13 to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate transfer from available funds and or borrow a sum of money for the purchase of a utility truck for the DPW sewer division or act in relation thereto. And the sum being 60,000.
Second.
Discussion? Just echoing what you said, Eric, earlier. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and Anita.
Yes.
I'm a yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 14.
I do not have an amount for 14.
It's $1,505,815.
Thank you. I make a motion that we recommend Article 14 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from funds and or borrow a certain sum of money for the fiscal year 2022 budget to operate the stormwater management enterprise or act in relation thereto, the sum being $1,505,815.
Second.
Discussion? This brings them up to full swing.
Yep.
And they found some efficiencies in there too. I think they were able to find some efficiencies in employees. So I'm fine with this. Any discussions?
Agreed. Nope.
All right, roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 15.
Okay, I make a motion that we recommend Article 15 to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate transfer of available funds and or borrow a certain sum of money for the replacement of the stormwater culverts on Dunshire Drive and related drainage and flood prevention improvements to Deep Brook or act in relation thereto, amount being 500,000.
Discussion? It was pretty clear that the work was needed.
And we will be submitting a grant application to the state. They just opened the grant round. I think the deadline is June 4th under the mitigation program. So we with this appropriation, we still will hope to reduce it with the grant award under the Municipal Vulnerability Protection Grant Program.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 16.
Article 16, I make a motion that we recommend Article 16 to see if the town will vote, raise an appropriate transfer from available funds and or borrow a sum of money for the purchase of a vacuum truck for the DPW Stormwater Division or act in relation thereto, the amount being 435,000.
Second.
As Gary and Steve eloquently put, you don't want a vacuum truck for both stormwater and sewer. We have a separated system. Let's keep it that way. Plus, they also have different components to them. They're very different trucks. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. I should have asked it a long time ago, but in both these trucks that we're buying, vacuum truck, are we getting a service contract with them? I would assume our ability to maintain them might require some help.
The short answer is yes. I mean, obviously the truck originally comes with a warranty, but then as you said, you do have to have specialized service, on some of the components of the truck, that are outside of the basic engine.
Well, is that money in the sum?
No, that would fall within the operational budget of the stormwater enterprise fund. So that's not included in the appropriation.
Okay.
That's factored into general maintenance and enterprise fund as well. I know Steve had talked about it. At least I know with us, Eric, when we met with them individually, that each truck will be maintained and taken care of through each individual enterprise fund. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Mina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
Yeah.
I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. All right. We went along to Article 17.
I also don't have an amount for the ice rink.
$60,000.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Article 17, I make a motion that we recommend to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, and or borrow a certain sum of money for the fiscal year 2022 budget to operate the Forum Ice Rink enterprise or act in relation thereto, the sum of $60,000.
Second.
Discussion?
Another straightforward one, I think.
Yeah. Paul, did they foresee any issues in shortfall for this year, the management company for the ice rink?
This is why we reduced it to $60,000. Normally it would be a $90,000.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. So, and the state's really pushing us, even in their guideline that came out today in budgeting, they're advising us, communities, municipalities, to be conservative in their budgeting.
Hmm.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Hopefully you can't hear my daughter. Now roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
Yeah.
I'll vote yes. I believe Mina has stepped out. She has not stepped back yet. So that is a 5 with 2 absence. Article 18.
Before I start, Paul, is the number 402-885 correct?
No, for Article 18, which is the PEG access, the number is $604,012. And then there's a part 2 of the motion that Pete's going to join us on for an additional $60,000 to be transferred from the PEG access enterprise fund free cash for the purchase of installation of 2 robotic cameras in McCarthy School auditorium. So again, it's 60412 for the enterprise fund operations for fiscal year 22, and then that second half being the $60,000 transfer from the PEG Access Enterprise Fund free cash for the purchase and installation of 2 robotic cameras at the McCarthy Middle School auditorium.
Okay. We'll present the motion, Kathy, and then during discussion, we'll have Pete speak to the addition that's come on.
Okay, so in my motion, should I include both numbers as a?
We certainly can, and we can amend the vote if necessary.
Okay. Okay. Recommend approval of I make a motion to recommend Article 18 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds and or borrow a certain sum of money for the fiscal year 22 budget to offer the cable, television, public educational government, PEG access enterprise $604,012 for the budget and an additional $60,000 to purchase 2 robotic cameras for McCarthy's auditorium.
Right.
I
From the PEG Enterprise Fund free cash, the 60,000,
Oh.
because we don't want to have a problem with the DOR going forward and saying, why is your number up 60?
The 60,000 coming from the PEG access free cash enterprise fund. PEG enterprise fund free cash 60,000 for the purchase of the cameras. I'm sorry.
Do I have a second?
Yes, I think I second that. Yes.
All right, discussion. Pete, thanks for being here this evening. If you could just speak to that new addition that's come on since we spoke last.
Sure. First, I was wondering if Kathy could repeat that.
The answer would be no.
That's what I thought, and I don't blame you. Can I share my screen real quick?
Certainly, I'll give you the option. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened here?
No? Not critical.
No, there we go.
Okay. Oop. This will stop the other. Oh, I'll stop you for a second.
That's fine.
Let's see. Actually, I was going to up it to 70,000 and I put the wrong number, but 60 is going to be fine. With the actual, we don't have a real estimate, but we're looking around 65, but I can make the rest of that up out of the budget. So that's fine. Basically, you guys are probably aware that they're redoing the McCarthy Auditorium. We have been involved helping with the AV part of that, especially Tom Peterson, our engineer. And the school system did have some money in there for the cameras, but when we got involved, we kind of wanted to get better cameras. We think it makes a lot of sense, not only for the school system, for the town, and for telemedia to have cameras in there that really will do the job, that will match all the other cameras that we have. And so, for example, if there's a performance or a presentation at McCarthy, we want to add things, we can bring our truck in, it all matches, we can do a really bang up job. It really made sense to us to do the right thing here in terms of the equipment. So we're going to do that out of our budget. And these are basically full resolution, high def cameras that have really good robotic control. And what that's also part of our grand engineering plan, if you will, is that, so say for example, there's an important presentation that's going to be happening at the McCarthy Auditorium. That's just say like a presenter and a PowerPoint. Well, we can actually control that whole thing from Parker. So say my colleague Vilu's working at Parker at night, he can also quickly control this right from the control room. And, we can sort of mix and match. I mean, the pandemic has sort of forced us to think in new ways. But the main thing is the image acquisition. We really wanted to up the quality of the camera and the controls, the robotic controls, and those things are kind of expensive. Anyway, so that's what we want to do. We did get an estimate, it was 65. So I think we're okay if you don't want to change your paperwork, and we can keep it at 60. That's really fine.
Thank you, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with amending for 65. I don't know about what the
It just means that, because we're going to have to put this out to bid, and I don't really know what's going to happen. But, if there's differences, yeah, 65 is better than, why not?
What's the current balance of the free cash? Do you know off the top?
Yeah, it's 282. So we're good there,
Mm-hmm.
And, we're almost through this year. I'm expecting to put some in again, we've had as you know, we had a resignation in the fall. I'm in the process of interviewing for that, but that's been an unexpected, small windfall for our department as well. So
I'd be happy to amend it for the 65,000. I'd rather you have adequate, I'd rather have it be for a little bit more and you not use it than not have enough to get what you need.
Yeah, it makes sense. It just goes back to where it came from if we don't use it. So,
I'm fine as Jenny, as a friendly amendment to your previous statements. You have to reread the entire thing, Kathy.
No, I think you need to reread the whole thing.
All right, Pete, you're not getting the extra 5 then.
Okay, I would like to make a friendly amendment changing the $60,000 amount previously mentioned to 65,000.
I second.
Any further discussion?
Pete, was the UF, you had like another amount on the bottom of your slide, 285, I thought. What is the UFB?
Well, I can share that again. That was, it should have been 282.
Oh, that's just your free, estimated free cash.
Undesignated fund balance. That's,
Gotcha.
I guess that was the term I was told for free cash, so.
Okay, thank you.
So. Okay,
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it.
thanks so much. Thanks for sneaking me in today. I'm so glad I wrote because I was like, I gotta do this, so. All right, bye-bye.
All right. All right. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, do a roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita?
Yeah.
I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Let's share the screen again. Give me 1 second. All right, perfect. All right, that brings us to Article 19.
I also don't have the amount for the golf course.
30,000, Kathy.
Thank you. Okay, I make a motion to recommend Article 19 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds and to borrow a sum of money for the fiscal year 22 budget to operate the golf course enterprise or act in relation thereto, some being 30,000.
Second.
Discussion? No, they're up and running. No, they're out golfing, so. All right. Seeing no discussion. Then roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
I'll vote yes.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yes, thank you. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 20.
Okay, I make a motion that we recommend Article 20 to see if the town will vote to A, amend Chapter 35, Section 6, departmental revolving funds of the Code of the Town of Chelmsford by adding thereto a new on-site sewage facility revolving fund with an authorization for the health director to spend from the fund those receipts from the permitting, inspection, and monitoring of on-site sewage facilities to pay for personal services and expenses related to the plan review, field inspections, and monitoring of on-site sewage facilities for the fiscal year 2022 and subsequent fiscal years, and B, authorize the total amount of expenditures in fiscal year 2022 from said revolving account to be 75,000 or act in relation thereto.
I second.
Discussion? No, pretty self-explanatory with what's going on. We'll need the availability there. And I think when Sue Rosa was there and presented, I think Paul and John confirmed the 75 is a target number. because we're going to have an outside source doing the inspections for any of these on-site sewage disposal systems.
Yeah, this basically just allows for timing difference, right? We'll collect the fees in advance from the applicant. They'll go into the fund, and then when we actually incur the cost, they'll get paid out of the fund. So no
Exactly.
funding from the town, just a way to handle the timing difference.
Yep, correct. Hearing no further discussion, roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes,
Eric,
Yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. That's 6, 1 absence. Article 21. Let me get up there.
Thank you. I make a motion that we recommend Article 21 to see if the town will vote to authorize the following total amount of expenditures for departmental revolving funds for the fiscal year 2022, which have been established under the provisions of Chapter 35, Section 6 of the Code of the Town of Chelmsford. Dog pound and licensing, 10,000. Senior Citizen Trip Program, 75,000. Senior Citizens Respite Care Program, 75,000. Police Cruiser Communications Equipment, 20,000. Fire Life Safety Equipment, 20,000. Sealer of Weights and Measures Inspections, 40,000. Cemetery Wreath Floral Decorations, 10,000, or act in relation thereto.
I second.
Discussion. This is just general revolving. It's a article every year. It has to be voted.
Yep.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll take a roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
yes,
Eric,
Yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 22.
I also don't have the amount for the sale of graves.
I'm going to defer to the commissioner.
Thank you. That would be 50,000.
I'm sorry, did you say 15?
50,000.
5-0.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay. I make a motion that we recommend Article 22 to see if the town will vote to transfer a certain sum of money from the sale of graves and lots to the Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund or act in relation thereto. The sum is 50,000.
second.
Discussion. Just a congrats to the commissioner. All right. If seeing no further discussion, we'll take a roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
yes,
Eric,
Yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 23.
I do not have an amount for Article 23
10,000, Kathy. That's the annual amount.
and Article 20, just while I'm doing this, 24, what's the amount for Article 24?
11,250.
250, yeah.
Okay, and 25, the community space preservation. I don't have an amount for that, and I don't have an amount for 27. I'm
But
sorry.
25 is a multiple motion, which we can go through when you get there, have to do a debt service and so forth.
Okay,
Um,
the parking lot in 27, I didn't see an amount indicated.
I believe it's 30,000 in 27.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, back to 23, sir. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend Article 23 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of money to fund the Community Action Program. established under Article 12 of the warrant for April 29, 1996 spring annual town meeting to provide matching funds to community improvement projects undertaken by individuals and organizations with the town of Chelmsford or act in relation thereto, the amount being $10,000.
Second.
Discussion? Same amount every year. It's a good source for a lot of scout projects, both Girl and Scouts of America, and other organizations in the town that are looking to do community service projects. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
yes,
I'll vote yes. 6 with 1 absence. Article 24.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 24 to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money that has been received by the town under the town inclusionary housing zoning bylaw to the Affordable Housing Stabilization Fund or act in relation thereto, the amount being $11,250.
Second.
Discussion? Do we anticipate any further funding coming in before town meeting, Paul?
No, there should be nothing for additional coming.
Okay,
And the current fund balance is 618,750. So again, we've never expended any money thus far from that account.
thank you.
Paul, what's this, I mean, obviously this says the source, but like, what's the actual, where's this coming from?
This is the final payment in lieu of funding for the gristmill 1 in the center. So this wraps it up at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
yes,
I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 25. This is the community preservation article, and I can do one of two things. I can pull up the actual pages we got from them. Why don't I do that? Famous last words here.
Yeah.
I had him and I lost him.
The key number is 142,000.
Thank you.
Is the appropriation from those to those 3 separate reserves. If you can't find it, but I can walk you through it. But that was the key number.
Yeah, for some reason, my copy is not coming forefront in that file for me.
Okay.
I don't know, does anybody else have it readily available? If not, we can just run through.
I don't. Didn't Darlene forward the document to us? I should have.
Well,
Found
yeah,
it.
that's what I'm trying to track down. That I couldn't find it in the file.
I don't think I can get it while we're talking. I'm sorry.
For time purposes, I was just seeing if anybody else might have it.
Again, there's no motion under A. It's just the report.
Yeah.
B is 142,000 from the open space reserve, 142,000 from the historic preservation reserve, 142,000 from the community housing reserve, and then 87,485 from the general reserve. That pays the fiscal year 22 debt service. Under C, the appropriation is 50,000 for the administrative expenses for the committee for fiscal year 22. And then under D, it goes back to for the amounts 142 for the acquisition, creation, and preservation of open space, $142,000 for the acquisition and preservation of historic resources, $142,000 for the creation, preservation, and support of community housing, and then $250,000 for the Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 22 budgeted reserve. So again, the key number is generally the 142, and then you fill in for the debt service and the estimated, and then the 50 for the admin.
You want to read that all back, Kathy? No, I'm just kidding.
So why don't I make a motion saying the numbers as
Presented.
presented? Is that all right?
That's fine.
I'll read it and then the amounts as presented. I'll make a motion that we accept Article 25 to see if the town will vote to hear and act on the report of the Community Preservation Committee on the fiscal year 22 community preservation budget. Appropriate a certain sum of money from fiscal 22 Community Preservation Fund revenues and/or from Community Preservation Fund reserves for the payment of fiscal year 2022 debt service. Appropriate the fiscal year 22 Community Preservation Fund revenues, a sum of money to meet the administrative expenses and all other necessary and proper expenses of the Community Preservation Committee for fiscal 2022, and D, reserve for future appropriation amounts from the fiscal year 2022 Community Preservation Fund revenues as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. 1, a sum of money for the acquisition, creation, and preservation of open space. 2, a sum of money for the acquisition and preservation of historic resources. And 3, a sum of money for the creation, preservation, and support of community housing. And 4, a sum of money for the Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 2022 budget reserve. The amounts as previously stated by the town manager.
Second.
Discussion? I would have just taken as presented, but
Oh,
That's what I thought we were doing.
you were on a roll. I wasn't going to stop you. Any further discussion?
What was the debt service amount again? I'm sorry. There was a lot of numbers thrown out there, Paul.
Or the debt service under the D is $142,000 each from the open space reserve, historic preservation reserve, and housing reserve, and then $87,485 from the general reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
yes.
Anita?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That's a 6 with 1 absence. Article 26.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 26 to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer a certain sum of money from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve for the purchase and installation of new playground equipment at Varney Playground in Southwell Park or act in relation thereto, the amount being $285,000.
No, I think it's 330 total, Kathy.
Oh.
The 285 was for Barney and the balance was for Southwell.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That sounds right. 55 for Southwell. Because there is a lot more removal work and stuff that has to be done over at Varney as well. It's just a bigger playground. It's all wood.
So I will second that.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, discussion. What I just said, but part of discussion. Thank you, Eric. Just that one. It's great that these are both being taken care of. It needs to be done. I know Varney has been with a while. I know that a lot of work's going to be done by the DPW as well, and that's not represented here. It's part of what they've put into their budget for grading and excavation work and things like that. So it's going to be a undertaking for sure. But they're both well-used locations. Varney with Freeman Lake there, and then in the Varney Park. and Southwell with the softball fields there. I think that'll be a good change and addition for the town. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 27.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 27 to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer a certain sum of money from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve for the establishment of a parking area and other improvements for the public use of the Warren Pole Conservation Land on a parcel of land located at 95 Boston Road, said parcel identified by the Chelmsford Board of Assessors as map 94, block 348, lot 14, or act in relation thereto. And the amount is $30,000.
All right, second.
Discussion. Hearing none. We got a roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, 6 with 1 absence. Article 28. I would recommend on this one, Kathy, that we just as presented.
Thank you. I make a motion that we recommend Article 28 as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion.
So I'll refer back to my comments when this was presented. I'm opposed and we're voting no for all the reasons previously stated.
And just for a refresher, when this was presented, I believe your position was that these items are already covered by current standing boards, and that your feeling is this is not a necessary committee to handle those particular situations.
That's correct.
All right. Just to get to the book, I want to make sure we got that clear is what your position is.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Eric. I feel that it's a unnecessary redundancy. You know, it's almost a level of bureaucracy that we don't need to have.
Okay.
I'm going to vote. Go ahead.
I'm in favor of this because perhaps it would, I can see that there's an overlap, but perhaps it doesn't cost us anything and it would keep the discussion going and perhaps enhance the communication between the various boards. And there seems to be a lot of talk at the State House regarding this issue, and anything that would put us one step ahead of everybody else in, possible grants, whatever, I'm all for. And if it doesn't cost us anything, why not?
I'm with Kathy. I agree. It does, for all same reasons. And then on top of that, if a citizen wants to form a committee, like, I don't feel it's my right to tell them, no, it's volunteer, there's no cost. And the worst that can happen is we don't have enough people for it and we then vote to get rid of it. But I just don't feel like it's my right to, if someone wants to form a committee, they should. And so I'm going to be voting in favor of it.
My concern is that it's not that a citizen wants to form a committee, he wants a select board to form a committee. And he wants the select board to charge that committee with studying and making recommendations. I mean, we don't know that it's not going to cost us money in the long run. We don't know that study isn't going to cost us money. So that's a concern.
And
yeah, I hear you. But if this is a concern of a citizen or a group of citizens in town and they want to form a committee to look at it, I don't see the harm. Again, there's no cost, and there is a cost. It'll come in front of us and it'll come in front of town meeting and we'll vote for it. So that's where, like, I would be in favor of this.
I don't see any harm in it either. It'd be good to know where we are. So down the road, if there is cost involved, then we can vote on the cost at that moment.
Just to Kathy's point, we already do this stuff. We're a green community. I don't believe we've bought a non-hybrid vehicle in several years. We're doing insulation, energy efficient buildings. I think we're already doing this. Sure, folks can go form a committee if they want to, but again, to Amina's point, this is asking the select board and the town to endorse that, and I'm opposed to that. So that's why I'm voting no.
Was my turn? I know I went back and forth on this one actually. I get the arguments on both sides. I get your positions, Amina and Eric, concerning the fact that there may be costs in the future associated with this. The presenter did mention that there are grants available. They'll be seeking grants for anything for studies that they're currently doing, although the availability of those in the future or currently is not concrete. The recommendations again would be recommendations, but to the extent that those are actually implemented, I don't know what that's going to look like in the future. And it is a group formed by the select board, and it's subject to what they would determine in the future is subject to, again, to any additional presentations to the town meeting for additional funds, as we've seen with other committees before in the past. They initially did not have any associated funding with them, but they have come before town meeting with presentations for funding for certain things, and that happens. Conversely, this is a citizen petition. They're looking to form a committee. The state resolutions are already being set at the state level, so us meeting these timelines, I think is appropriate to make sure that we're monitoring that. And to the extent that it's being redundant on a non-paid level, at least in the current form. I hope that if this is formed, we do have enough people to actually come and form and stay on this committee. So it's an issue where we have a committee that's lapsing for formation and for members. I always think it's a good idea to get more voices involved and in the town in working in these committees. This is another opportunity for maybe some people that would not normally join one of those other committees to come forward and to be involved in some level in the town town involvement where they wouldn't normally otherwise. And having said that, and the fact that there's no current financial impact, I'm probably most likely going to support this one. We'll support a recommendation for support. Any further comments? Discussions? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
No.
Eric?
No.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
Yeah.
And I'll vote yes. So Pam, that's four yes, 2 no, and 1 absence. Thank you. Article 29.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend Article 29 to see if the town will vote to amend the town general bylaws, Chapter 1-187 of the town code by striking the words Board of Selectmen and Selectmen whenever they appear, and inserting the word Select Board in place thereof or act in a relation thereto.
Second.
Discussion? It's just a cleanup article for catching things we didn't catch before, right?
Yeah, I just had a quick question though. I understand replacing Board of Selectmen with Select Board, but if you're referring to one person, like a select man, or or a couple of select men,
Should I say select person?
or member. I'm just to say
board
select
member.
board in replace of them seems like you're referring to the entire group. It's just a
That
weird
is
grammar
kind of how
thing.
it's
It's not
written.
like-
You are correct. That And so the way this warrant article is currently written, what it says is by striking the words Board of Selectmen and Selectmen and replacing Selectmen with Select Board. I don't know if there'll be any issues with pronouns in any of these bylaws or in the code. But I
No, I
understand.
didn't mean the pronoun. I didn't mean the gender classification. I just meant the fact that if you're referring in some fashion to selectmen, and you might only be referring to a couple of them, by saying select board, aren't you assuming you're meaning the whole group?
No, yeah. So not only I'm sorry, not only pronouns, but numbers.
If I could interject a thought on that, but in your bylaws, what they're talking about is the bylaws. In the bylaws, they're talking about the board as an entirety, not an individual select person.
So there's no, so Kathy, there's no point in there where it says like you must have a vote of 4 out of the what, like 3 out of the whatever selectmen.
No, generally in the bylaws, it references, a member of the Board of Selectmen, or you don't see in the bylaws select man or a third person singular. So it generally either reads, it's inconsistent, but it either generally reads Board of Selectmen or it reads Selectmen, in shorthand. And basically, so we're replacing that with Select Board in all instances. But when it refers to an individual, it usually is a member of the Board of Selectmen, where now would read a member of the Select Board.
Okay,
so no,
thanks, Paul. I just didn't want us to have to do this all over again.
Right. And the reason we waited on this is we had to get the charter approval first before we could change the bylaws. Now the charter approval is in effect, so now we come back and do the bylaws.
Thank you.
Further
And
discussion?
in fact, and in fact, I understand that there's going to be a motion to change the state constitution to reference it from selectmen to a Board of Selectmen to Select Board as well, to make the state constitution gender neutral.
So recognizing this is cleanup and it's a lost cause, I oppose the original change. I'm going to oppose this as well, just to be consistent.
If nothing else, Eric, you are consistent.
And if it's a vote on the Constitution, which it probably won't be, I would vote to oppose that as well.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Roll call vote, David?
Yeah, I hate to go against Eric on this. Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Kathy?
I'm going to abstain with a nod to Eric because I disagree with the original as well. So I'm going to abstain from voting.
Okay. When you abstain, you don't have to provide a reason, but thank you. Anita?
Oh, yes.
And I'll vote yes. So that's for the tally keeper. That's 4 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstention with 1 absence. That's gonna be a fun one to report.
They're going to want to know why.
I'm sorry.
People are going to want to know why.
I know. I'm aware.
Refer to the previous book.
So reference, yeah. Article 30.
Make a motion that we recommend Article 30 to see if the town will vote to amend the town's zoning bylaw, Chapter 195 of the Town Code by striking the words Board of Selectmen and Selectmen whenever they appear and inserting the words Select Board in place thereof or act in relation thereto.
I second.
Discussion. I don't think we need it. It's the same discussion we had last time. Roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Kathy?
Abstain.
Anita?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. So that's 4 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention, 1 absence. Article 31. And I think this is another as presented, Kathy.
Yes, please and thank you. I make a recommendation. Excuse me. I make a motion that we recommend Article 31 as presented, stormwater management.
I second.
Discussion. It's a pretty comprehensive article. We've read through it before. We've seen it for, we've had it for some time now. It helps codify a lot of what's been going on with the stormwater department. I think it's important, it's practical, and there's no reason not to support it.
I agree with all that.
All right. Now I have to scroll through it all. I would point out this may garner some discussion because there are portions for some violations and offenses, just as a reminder.
I think something this lengthy is bound to generate some questions and discussion.
For sure.
Okay. Now at the end of the scroll, so we've had a first, second discussion. Hearing no further discussion, do a roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 32, and again, as presented, I think.
Thank you. I make a motion that we recommend Article 32 as presented. Grinder, sewage disposal grinder pump code.
I second.
I may adjust the title slightly in the book, Kathy, but yes, that functions. Discussion.
So this was an interesting topic for me when the gentleman presented, and there were good questions. Not something I'm that familiar with. I think the key, at least my perspective, interested to see if anybody agrees or disagrees, is that essentially he's trying to, quote unquote, codify in the bylaws what's essentially town policy, which one could argue that's not needed or is needed, but I get that. I'm going to support this. It's like it's a well thought out proposal.
All right. Any other discussion? Slowly scroll through here. Were there any deviations from current town policy, Paul, that you saw in this? I didn't see any.
No.
Okay. Also, having said that, in conjunction with what Eric said and the presentation by Mr. Foley from the sewer, I always say the name of their group incorrectly, so I'm not going to try. Sewer Fairness Alliance or something similar to there too. I'm going to support this as well. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita, I believe you're abstaining on this one.
Correct.
All right. And I will vote yes. So that's a 5 with 1 absence and 1 abstention. Moving along to Article 33. And I'm not going to make you read all the parcels, but you might want to do just the wording regarding it.
Okay, I make a motion that we recommend Article 33 to see if the town will vote to transfer the care, custody, management, and control of the following parcels of land around Freeman Lake, lots and parcels addressed listed.
I second.
Just to,
Want me to add that too, from the select board held for general municipal purposes to the Conservation Commission for conservation purposes or enact relation thereto.
Thank you.
And I'll second again.
All right, thank you. Discussion? From speaking with, when David McLaughlin came on from the Conservation Commission, he didn't believe that any of these particularly were very, very large lots, with the exception of a couple, one on Willis Drive and one on Shore Drive that are around 2 acres. But where they land, there's nothing that he said there might be a ability for, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, discussing about possible pocket parks or things of that nature. But this is basically land that surrounds Freeman Lake. And I'm fine with this being transferred to their custody control. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Now moving on, you know the piece of paper now. Article 34.
I make a motion that we recommend Article 34 to see if the town will vote to accept an easement of land located at 11 Cushing Place /1A Central Square, identified by the Chelmsford Board of Assessors as map 84, block 336, lot 5, as depicted on an easement exhibit plan entitled Gristmill Apartments at Beaver Brook, prepared by Howard Stein Hudson, dated 9/15/2020. A copy of said easement exhibit plan and the associated easement agreement is attached to this warrant or an act in relation thereto.
Second.
Discussion. I don't have a copy of the easement plan itself to throw up right now, at least readily available. But essentially, this was part of the agreement when the Gristmill Apartments went in. It's that easement that allows the access around the property. And as the trails get further cleaned up and cleared out, I think this makes sense. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Do roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. Article 35. And we can just say
Yeah.
Russell's asked.
And then I'll read the last section. I make a motion that we recommend Article 35 to see if the town will vote to acquire the following parcels or lands for the purpose of constructing sidewalks as the property listed, and to further authorize the select board to acquire those parcels and or easements through any and all legal means available under the general laws of the Commonwealth, including without limitation by donation, purchase, and or eminent domain or act in relation thereto.
Second.
Discussion. I know Steve had mentioned they'd started the process already with regard to this. Are we starting to see any indication as to which way we're leaning, whether there'll be gifting or what the eminent domain takings might be?
I don't know at this time, but I don't think any of it would be of any significant value. A lot of that area is wet by the brook and so forth, so.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll do roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That's 6 with 1 absence. And we're going to Article 36.
Yeah, I'd ask that you take no action on this evening. This is going to the select board on Monday evening. This involves a reconfiguration of the intersection of Ledge Road and Dunstable Road. and it requires a significant easement from the property that's at that intersection. And the reason that it's then held off is, one, to get the plan completed, but also to have the current board, which would be presenting this town meeting, be the one who acts upon this. So unfortunately, I really, would ask that you table this, and perhaps at your June meeting to consider this if the board moves forward with it, at that time. So it's a significant piece of easement for an individual property homeowner at that intersection.
Yeah, my understanding from Steve was that this is a rather large chunk of their land that's being approached. So I understand the want and desire to explore this a little further before either proceeding with it or having a discussion by the select board. I'm fine with taking no action on this one.
When we talk about a June meeting, when would that meeting be?
In June.
Very good. Let me be more specific. Would it be, how close would it be to when we actually meet for town meeting?
If the town meeting goes off on the 17th, I would probably say 2 weeks prior, probably like June 3rd, which is the Thursday after Memorial Day.
Right.
Would be the time for you to meet. And then that way you're not rushed. It's not last minute. It gets out there. So I think that's probably a realistic date, would be the June 3rd.
That would be my point. So that's great.
Yeah.
I got that too, David. I was just pulling your
It's
leg
fine.
on that one. Serves me right. Yeah, no, I think that's a good timeline. To be a couple weeks before, not a night of meeting, but to have it before then, and we'll see where we are as far as meetings are concerned. I know that in their meeting earlier this evening, the select board was discussing in-person meetings again. So in June we may be headed toward that anyway. So we'll see what it looks like, see what happens. I know there's been some discussion about 204 and 205 and what those rooms might look like as far as being properly outfitted at the town hall. And as you all know, we meet in one of those meetings normally in a normal year. So we'll see where we are at that. But yeah, I think the good target would be, as Paul mentioned, that June 3rd location. So no action on 36. Article 37.
I'm going to make a motion that we recommend Article 37 regarding parking regulations for the Village Center Overlay District as presented.
I will second that.
Discussion.
I'm going to say yes to this, going on the discussion and follow-up with Mr. Belansky, that this has potential for preserving parking in the center village.
Yes, because with it's reduced from 50 down to 20% of for the use requirement. So it's actually making it more restrictive for those things going in rather than less restrictive. It sounds counterintuitive, but he did make a change to the I think the slide that he was discussing at that time.
Yeah.
But I agree. Any further discussion?
Well, the only thing that I would say is, when I apologize for not thinking about bringing it up or asking Mr. Belansky about it during the presentation, is I really hope the town thinks about parking for handicapped people and giving violations to people who do park in handicapped spots, because as I see it, there are limited spots and I frequently see non-handicapped people plates, not the people, non-handicapped plates parked in these spots, and I find that very unsettling. So I just hope there's always a nod for the spots for the disabled.
Well, I agree with that, but I just to add, that's not a zoning or a permitting issue. That's a law enforcement issue.
Well, I didn't know if it was a way to increase the numbers zoning wise for specific handicap spots. It just popped into my mind later. And I'm sorry I didn't bring it up at the time, but I plan on voting for this. So.
But at the very least, it'll decrease the reduction to 20% from 8%, which will therefore provide a little extra parking availability. And the hope and would be that we're certainly following ADA compliant provision of handicapable access. So I would hope that your hope is, I would assume that your hope is being implemented accordingly.
And this is, I guess it's important just for anybody that didn't see the initial discussion, this is prospective only. So we're not going to require people to change existing parking layout. This is only if you do something that requires a permit going forward.
That was the explanation to us, yes. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, the roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Anita?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That is 6 with 1 absence. Article 38. And
Okay.
as presented, I think is where we're heading with this one.
Yes, please. I make a motion that we recommended Article 38 regarding town zoning bylaw e-commerce as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
I, as you guys have heard me at the previous meetings, I, in general, am in favor of most of this article except the fulfillment center. I think it could have financial ramifications more than what we think. We've done a great job, I think, with the overlay. We're seeing businesses finally coming in, like Thermo Fisher. I think if we allow fulfillment centers, this is going to change what our priority will be. And, you know, if you look at Mass Bio, we're a platinum community. Other communities that are platinum are Cambridge, Lexington, Waltham. Those are your platinum communities. We're listed up there. Last year, there was $4 billion raised in IPOs. That was almost 4 times what it was the year before. Massachusetts, I think, got over 50% of those IPOs. 50% of the IPO-based companies in Massachusetts are outside of Cambridge. They're not going away. They're looking for space. They need space. They're in the office because they need lab space. So we have to make a determination here whether or not we want Chelmsford to be known as the fulfillment center, and that's okay if that's what we want. Or do we want to bring businesses in here like the Thermo Fishers that are finally beginning to come, even during a pandemic? Yes, you know, office space, people are working from home. Trust me, I love working from home, but I'll be going back into the office at some point. I think the office needs are going to come back. I think the open concept where you can put more people into space is gone because of COVID. You're no longer having, you know, people sit at a table across from each other. Their cubicles are going to come back, offices come back. That all equates to additional office space needs. Fulfillment centers, what's going to happen is the look of 129, if you're looking at specifically 129, those buildings, the Kronos building will be torn down and a building with minimum windows will be erected, because that's what a fulfillment site looks like, because they have to, and there'll be trucks coming in and out, and 129 is a great location, but you have to make the determination, do we want the Thermo Fishers here or do we want a fulfillment site? Additionally, IA, the way Chelmsford has been cut up with our zoning, you run the risk of it having consequences or unintended consequences in people's neighborhoods. And, I have a concern about that because there's one thing when, like, for example, when Mercury was erected in the late 80s, in a neighborhood, there are homes, right, that abutted. It was put in a location it's an office space. There's a lot of greenery. It's in the back. And it's not intrusive. We already heard that there is someone looking at that space. There is someone looking at it asking to put a fulfillment site. That's something very different to those neighbors. And yes, warehousing is allowed, but warehousing is very different. Fulfillments are about turning things around. Warehousing is about storage. Warehousing facilities are usually don't run, 24/7. In the likelihood of someone coming in and tearing down a building and building a fulfillment site, is the economics, the financials just don't work for it. So they're more likely to use the space that they're currently in. So I would support this if we took the fulfillment, if there was an amendment that took fulfillment off the table. I think this is, looking at the short term, trying to make short-term money, and it's going to have a real long-term consequence to the town. So I am not voting in favor of this.
I think this is just a continuing trend of trying to create flexibility in zoning. If this passes, that doesn't mean that tomorrow Amazon could open a multiple 1,000 square foot building with no oversight or town involvement. It just gives it gives the town, the planning board, and others the option to consider that. Again, anything that would still have to go through the existing process, there would be plenty of opportunities for input, discussion. Would you rather have a nice looking empty office building or a fulfillment center? I would probably rather have a fulfillment center. I get the whole NIMBY, maybe not if I live next to it, but this is just it's an option. I would vote in favor of this.
Just for, based on this zoning, the fulfillment center, UPS is on 34 acres. It's a 400,000 square foot facility. The Mercury building, which has 18 acres of structure, could be built up to 500,000 square feet on it. And there are people who have homes on there that abut that. And I don't think this was, I think this is, again, developers in here looking at a piece of property, and that's what they want to build. So let's throw it all in there. We have that flexibility. We can have ghost kitchens in our town. We can have dark stores. There's nothing that prohibits that in our current zoning. However, what's prohibited is this fulfillment center. And that's what's going to open up. And yes, you're right. They're going to go in for a special permit. But then what happens when we see something come in? The planning board goes, oh, well, our hands are tied because the zoning allows it. So there's not really, there's oversight, but no, not really, because we're allowing this type of structure that could be built. And again, I am all for flexibility. We have it already in there. We don't have it defined, but it's in there. And I would, 100% support this article if we took out fulfillment. But in good conscience, I can't do this to residents of this town. I don't think it's fair to them.
I would like to tag into this conversation. I feel torn by this because I see as a community what we really want to do, and I am all for this, is increase our commercial base to give us a healthier economy, a different tax base, and to attract people who want to work here and live here. And so I'm really a proponent for forward thinking and proposing these things. And I'm happy with the dark kitchens and the other things, but I do think the fulfillment center could be a significant issue. I think that zoning should be tweaked to, small changes, adaptive changes to help encourage these things. I really don't think that huge zoning changes should be made with the purpose to solely accommodate a particular type of business. I think if we evolve over time and change, then we're in a better position than basically, you know, taking the hammer. Oh, we were approached by this company that wants to have a fulfillment center, so let's put together this change. And the thing about the zoning is, like, the IA, is that we seem to have these pocket areas where maybe we can't foresee that these structures or business types would happen in those pocket places, but it could happen, and we have to be cognizant of that. And also, I think the whole zoning going through Vinyl Square, where we had the discussion about, you know, that Vinyl Square zoning has, you know, one side of the road is this, one side is that, and then they've got this little pocket here. But there's got to be more of a vision, a master plan, and I really feel that we need to make sure that all the boards are coordinating the vision. I mean, what do we really want to be? Do we want that 129 to be just any type? Okay, that's I mean,
no. I'm not to interrupt, but just on that point before we get too far away from it, if correct me if I'm wrong and I'm misremembering, but Evan represented to us the planning board discussed the Vinyl Square portion and regarding whether or not fulfillment centers would be allowed in that location in Vinyl Square, and I believe the determination was that they would not be.
That's only because, though, Jim, because, sorry, Kathy, during the planning board meeting, I think the Vinyl Square committee actually asked them to exclude it because they didn't want fulfillment centers in there.
And I know that's the reason, but I want to be clear that she was just referencing Vinyl Square, and then that's not this fulfillment, this area discussion. It would not be occurring in that location.
Okay, so thank you. But I still thank you, and I'm glad for them. So, but I guess it goes back to my baseline theory about consistency and addressing some of those issues before we make these changes for the whole town. So, like, I'm on a teeter-totter thing. Like, I want the money, but I don't want huge changes, and I want it to be thoughtful. Now, on the fulfillment center, I live not near 129. I live over near the high school, and I don't usually travel that way. So I went down 29, I went down River Neck Road, Mill Road, just drove around in areas that I typically don't travel. And it just, one thing that struck me was, above and beyond the quote unquote traffic thing, is if it's a fulfillment center and they're moving in and out all the time, what type of vehicles are transporting their products? Are they UPS style? Are they bigger? There's a lot of road work, and I don't know that we're incorporating charging them for road updates and upgrades, because if they were going to do for the River Neck Road and even Mill Road, and there's a lot of windy, twisty, small turns, and I just don't know if that space accommodates this. And are we actually getting something back from these businesses that will accommodate our needs as a community? That's my question. So I applaud the forward thinking, and I wish the Ghost Kitchen, tell me how to get my Guy Ferrari stuff from Bertucci's. I'm happy. In some of the smaller things, but I do feel that larger, not warehouse facility, processing, I think it's questionable. So I'm going to vote no and hope that it comes back in a pared back or reformatted manner.
Well, you might, I come at it a little differently since I moved a few businesses in my day, although I do think that the types of businesses have changed over time. But certainly if you're a fulfillment center, you don't want to be moving someplace where it doesn't work well and where you're not welcome. I mean, you got to look at it from the other end. I mean, I think we want to be as open as we possibly can because we need more business in this town. If it's fulfillment people, they don't want to go where the roads don't work, where there's windy, where the people, there's housing near them and the people don't want them there. That it doesn't work. And people don't make those type of decisions normally. So we might be overreacting a little bit. Maybe we're not.
No,
But that's just
David, there is a developer looking at the Mercury building, which is on River Neck Road, which abuts neighborhoods, that's looking that one of the things that they're proposing is a fulfillment center.
Okay.
And it doesn't, it doesn't work. There's not even a clear access to 129 or Route 3, but that's what they want to build. And that's what we have to be careful. Like, again, these are the unintended consequences. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves with something we don't want next door. And my point is on this is that if we decide we're at a crossroad between Route 3 and 495, if we allow fulfillment centers, we will become the town that's where the spot for fulfillment centers. Now, I think having UPS in Chelmsford is great. I don't think I want 129 littered with this. I'm also going to tell you that you're not going to get your biotax. The Thermo Fishers that are moving in, and I think we got $1 million in fees for construction fees alone. They're not going to want to have their office building next door to a fulfillment center. So there are financial consequences, and I just think we need to be smart about it. Change the size of what can go on a lot. Rethink this. Let's not open the whole barnyard wide open. Let's be smart about how big we want them, what the maximum size can be. But instead, what we're doing is we're saying, oh, we got a developer here. He wants to do this. Okay, that's an extra $1 million in fees. Let's grab it. But then not really looking at the long-term effect of it. So again, I would support this if we took out the fulfillment. The rest of it's already allowed, under our zoning anyways. It's just not defined. But I think we need to be careful about it. And I wish that they wouldn't go into neighborhoods, but that's not what's happening.
Well, the focus I think I've heard has been more on, the commercial development tax. But, if you get a fulfillment center of size, you're also talking a heck of a lot of jobs. So it's not just tax money, it's the economic impact of employment. I think it's a little bit of a false narrative to say, oh, if we pass this, we'll never get biotech. It's not an A or B. Sure, you could say that about a lot of things. I had indirect firsthand knowledge. I don't even know if that's a thing, indirect firsthand. Amazon tried to come into Tingsboro. They're trying to sell Green Meadow Golf Course. The town, not the town, abutters, neighbors were against it, and it didn't happen. So clearly it was allowed, but the community said, we don't want it. I think that's an option here. All we're doing is giving the option for things to be developed and or proposed that then the town could weigh in via the process to say yes or no.
But the abutters are not, if it's allowed under zoning, they're doing everything per the zoning, which on an 18-acre piece of lot could be a 500,000 square foot facility. The abutters can say what they want. Guess what? It's going in. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're not being smart about how the zoning is being done, right? Like, we have to put limits. We got to put it in a box and go, all right, what is our space? What does it look like? What do we really want here? And then it does give the abutters an ability to state their voice, and it gives the planning board something to fall back on to support them and get something that we want. But when we open it wide open like this is, and I'm going to tell I work in biotech. I know what I go visit space. I can tell you what you're looking for when you're looking for your space, and it's not to be next to a fulfillment center. That's just what it is. And you're right, it does bring people into the town, but a fulfillment center is not office space, so you don't have the folks coming in spending their primary time in the office, maybe going out to lunch. fulfillment center is going in and out, right? Most of your employees are going out. There's no, yeah, there maybe have a couple people managing the facility, but it's the people that their employer are in and out, transporting the goods out. Again, I think I've stated my position on this.
I understand the concern, but allowing for the zoning, I'm usually for more permissive zoning, for adding from off, especially where we have an economic impact associated with it. We've been trying to, since I've been on the FinCom, look at ways that the town can shift the CIP, and we're finally heading that direction with the Crossroads rebranding, with more business coming in, with the amenities that come in, with the drive-throughs that come in. I see this as the next step, and with as I think everyone's agreed, and correct me if I'm wrong, with the, just want to make sure I have the exact kinds available, with the ghost kitchens, with the co-located dark stores, things like that. That's kind of where we're headed, and identifying and notifying and defining those uses and where those uses can go. The retail, the e-commerce, the fulfillment, dark, ghost. I think it's a wise decision. Fulfillment, I'm not convinced with all the scaremongering. I get the concern over fulfillment centers. I don't necessarily see it being as big an issue, and maybe I'd be wrong. But I as David said, as Eric said, these places are looking for a proper location to go into. They want to be closer to the highway. They want to be located in a location where they can do proper distribution. If it comes to a position at the town meeting where there is an amendment and it ends up being friendly to remove this particular piece of the article, I'm not sure I'll be opposed to that to that friendly amendment, or if it is a friendly amendment, depending on what the planning board feels on the date of the town meeting. But what we have before us now is the full article. We've gone over it a couple times now. We've gone with questions. We've had discussions with a couple planning board members and with development coordinator Evan Belansky. And so for the shift and continuing the shift alone to the CIP, I think this is the next logical step, and I am going to support this article. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Do a roll call vote. David?
Will vote in favor. Yes.
Amina?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
No.
Anita?
No.
I'll be a yes. So it's a 3-3 with one absence. Moving along, Article 39. And on this, if you don't mind, well, no, because we need the language for the article, don't we, Kathy? Hold on, let me switch, because I'll probably be switching back after. All right, Article 39.
I will make a motion that we recommend Article 39, amending the town zoning bylaw regarding recreational marijuana accessories as follows, as presented.
Second.
discussion, and let me just pull up the actual presentation that we had, because I don't think we're gonna get much from the actual article in the warrant.
Okay. As far as discussion, I have some things to say. I did spend some time today on the state website, the overseeing board, and got some information. But I'd like to kind of set this up as 2 points of what my perspective is. One is I feel that this came from the planning board a little bit out of the blue, and my personal emotions attached to that made me feel like it was an end run against the past town meeting. As a whole, the town voted against the legalization of pot. Then the town meeting voted down retail sales. And based on the information from the state website, even towns that voted in favor of marijuana being legalized have a ban on the sales. Here are some towns that have bans: Carlisle, Concord, Lincoln, Lexington, Axford, Acton, Westford, Andover. Here are some towns that are involved in the marijuana sale in various aspects: Dracut, Lowell, Tingsboro. And when we had our discussion about this, I asked about the genesis of the idea, because it was in the back of my mind about where did this come from when town meeting voted it down. And so when they came to our meeting and I asked that genesis, they said they had no idea. But if you look back at their meeting, and they said, oh, this came up on our December 9th meeting. So I went on and watched it, the December 9th planning board. And if you look at it, at the 56-minute mark, when the floor was open for suggestions for town meeting, it was posed by Mike Raisback. It was a well thought out suggestion with not a wasn't a toss out idea about how this came about. It was well thought out and details given. But when I asked where the idea came from at our meeting, and Mike was an attendee, he remained quiet, and the response was that no one remembered. And at a subsequent planning board, when they were doing their vote on this article, Mike Walsh, a member, asked the question again. And at that time, the reply from Mike was, and I think Nancy as well, was that it was, really part of the master plan committee. Then Mr. Walsh stated that he had not missed a planning board meeting and hadn't seen any presentation from the planning board. So I have some problems with how this idea came about. Again, the consensus among communities having a standard presence of vision. Okay, and also the warrant article includes every possible option except direct retail sales. So it's got the craft, cultivation, micro business, transportation, testing, research. I'm fine with testing and research. Also, when we asked about the financial positive impacts on the town, the number was that on the revenue of $5 million, the estimate is $150,000 worth of revenue. So if we're going to get in $150,000 worth of revenue, if that requires on a townwide level just one police officer with salary and benefits and all the other sundries, we're pretty much wiping out the $150,000 worth of revenue. So at that planning board meeting where they made their vote, they had a speaker who cultivates pot, and I forget his name, But anyways, he even the speaker listed some negative issues and discussed in detail that there'd be impacts on water, sewer, that there's a smell for up to 60 days, and there, certain security requirements. Interesting point, when our committee asked if the town had been approached by anybody, we were told no. But then the speaker himself, without being asked anything about it, elaborates that he had in fact spoken to the town in the past about this. I think he said within the last year. My second area of concern is where these classifications, cultivation, craft, cultivation, operations, etc. can happen. And I'm primarily concerned with the IA zoning of two locations. The IA near the Byam School and the rail trail, and the IA in North Chelmsford on Wanton Street, which is the public garden area. It is completely wrong to me to have any of these operations near an elementary school and public walking trails. How lovely to smell pot on your bike ride with your kids. And on the Wanton area, we were told no way would this happen on public land, but I'm telling you, who knows what's going to happen into what the future holds. And I literally don't know if there's any part of the area that isn't owned by the town, even a small acre plot that is considered IA, because I can totally see someone utilizing this area, even a small acre plot, and saying in the future, well, it's legal in the state of Massachusetts, it fits with the zoning, why can't I grow it? And from reading on the state website, there's a lot of information about craft cultivation sales. It's very interesting that to do this category, you don't need to have one continuous piece of property, but you could cobble together up to 3 separate locations for your business. So that you could just have a little spot here, here, and here, and those 3 things could give you the area you needed to qualify. And then all you need to do is to be established as a limited liability company, an LLC space in an IA zone. And there you go. And what the craft people do is they deliver product to retail sales. All of this information is from the state site in the document guidance for host communities. I also learned that the local tax of 3% is an option for retail sales only, but that towns can charge fees, including the cost of traffic enhancement, mitigating other problems, and I think that is up to 3%. But have these fees been established and or suggested? And the document also suggested and stated that there has to be a public outreach that must be held within 6 months of the project. My final issue is continuity in the community at large, which I briefly stated in the previous discussion. We should be moving in step with the master plan committee, the planning board, the Center Village committee, and Vinyl Square committee, which I discussed has the multiple zones. I feel like all these various committees, like where really was the genesis? What's the purpose of it? Is it, how much money would we really earn? So I really feel like the dog's tail is wagging, but the head doesn't know what's happening behind him. And I feel this article should be withdrawn and reviewed thoroughly and exceptions made to the IA Byam and IA Wanton area. So I'm a strong no in opposition to this.
Can I make a few points? Kathy, a lot of information. Good job there. A few thoughts of my own. I would not fall back on the view that this came up before and town meeting voted it down. Therefore, why is it back? 3 years ago, town meeting voted down a no plastic bags, and yet today I can't go get a plastic bag. Town meeting can reassess. They can revisit topics. The plastic bag ban was the very next year they changed their mind. So, this is just putting it again to the town to see if they want to revisit something that still excludes the sale of marijuana. While there might have been some disagreement on the previous article about, if you do this, it opens the doors to anything. This one clearly spells out that if this article passes, it's not a green light to bring it all in, open it up tomorrow. Since this is under state supervision with the Cannabis Control Commission, it's going to require the select board, the planning board. I mean, this one clearly gives a lot of power to a community to say, even if you vote for this zoning, that you still can review each individual application to decide if this is a yes or no. So much like the previous article, this is about options. The one concern that I will say I kind of echo and agree with Kathy is I watched the planning board meetings as well, and it was a little confusing that it was like nobody knew who said what when. I didn't really understand that. As far as the presentation, the gentleman that came in to talk about this, I believe after that, Mr. Belansky actually said that even if this passed as it is, there's really nowhere in town that would allow for an outdoor cultivation. There's just not the space for that, other than perhaps, as Kathy mentioned, a town-owned lot, which I assume that therefore the town would control what happened there. So, pros and cons. I'm not sure if this comes down to an individual's view of marijuana. I will say I've driven past the Tingsboro location regularly. The keyword is I've driven past it, not to it. The sky hasn't fallen. The world hasn't ended. It seems to be a thriving business. But that again, that is retail. That's sales. That's not what is a part of this. It's kind of all that back office pieces. That based on my understanding of where we are today, even though it's allowed, outdoor growing is extremely unlikely. And even if a lot does appear that would fit the definition, it still requires multiple steps through the town before that could ever happen. So much like the other zoning view, flexibility with even more oversight and input from the town, I would be in favor of supporting this. Thank you.
Eric, I have to, totally disagree with you. You say that, not a lot of spaces where this cultivation could occur. You yourself said there's a lot of empty spaces on 129. The numbers, if the numbers work, someone will buy one of those buildings, tear it down, and do a cultivation. You have a 5-year payback. That's a go decision. And an empty piece of property could go very quickly. So, when we look at this, we can't go in this being blind and go, oh, well, we don't have a lot of space, so therefore it's, not going to be cultivated outside. We do. We have a lot of empty spaces. We have, right now we have Lockheed Martin, that's IA, across from Bayonne. What if, they decide to leave and that's an empty space? That could be bought and this could happen. Again, what I have an issue with the zoning and these articles coming up is let's open the floodgates, and because of how our town is zoned and cut up, let's build it anywhere. Instead of coming in and saying, okay, you know what, let's look at this one section. There are not a lot of, it's all industrial. This would work here. And let's limit it to this, yes, the state allows, certain things, but we don't have to allow it in our zoning. We can put a bracket around it and say, this is how much you can have, how much you can't have. Why can't we build in those controls? And again, I've heard too many times from residents in this town, this unintended consequence, and then them trying to fight something and getting told, well, The zoning allows it. There's nothing much we can do. And, you know, quite honestly, I think personally selling is less disruptive to this town, allowing retail sales than allowing cultivation, even indoor cultivation. The person said that there's a smell for 30 to 45 days. There will be a smell. You have homes, you have apartments off of 129. Not to mention, he also went and described how there would be a fence around it, high barbed wired fence. You know, what's the opportunity cost of what other buildings would want to come next to that? So, you know, there is a true cost of just opening the floodgates here. I'm voting wholeheartedly no on this. If it was presented in a manner that had more controls around it, more location controls, where it could be, where it couldn't be. But until we address the IAs that, you know, are in neighborhoods and are budding, you know, homeowners, then I can't vote for something like this as presented.
I would just like to add, I don't want to hog the conversation, but also you can limit the number of licenses according to this document that I read today. I don't see anything here about limiting the number of license. And the whole fees of the impact of the community, I don't see any structure of that. So I think that we could have more control of this if this were revamped. And also on that, I'm trying to think of the term here, your specialized pot, your small person that can have up to three different zones to come up with their particular, you know, pot. What's it called? The special pot, your brand.
The craft.
Thank you, craft. I'm sorry, I was having a brain cramp there. So you don't need one contiguous space. So you could have a very small space on that. I don't know if Watton Street IA is totally owned by the town of Chelmsford. I just don't know that. But you could have a small IA space, you know, wedged in one little spot. You could be living on a piece of property that is actually, you know, is in an IA spot that has a couple of acres, and you could add that. So you could add up to 3 different spots in order to have your craft license. So I don't think all the ramifications and all the control that we could ensue or use has been integrated into this. And if you were going to go forward to it, I think you would want to put the town in a power position. And what I see happening is like, and not only that, they listed every possible thing, transportation, cooperative. So it's not as this like, oh yes, this is an opportunity, but we're going to run the ship. It seems to me like the business owner is running us. And I think that we should be in the power seat. That's really my perspective. And I just don't think we should just open up the doors and say, okay, whatever you want, wherever you want it. And by the way, we have all these funny little pockets around town because that's just the way it is. So that's my perspective.
Well, I really, several of you have come out very strongly, and I really respect your feelings and your opinions on this matter. I just don't see this as being that dangerous in its current form. Seems like it's got plenty more hurdles to go through before anything would actually happen. I'm more in kind of where Eric is on the matter, and I think I'm going to support this.
If I can just reiterate my understanding of this, again, we don't vote yes on this and the doors are thrown wide open.
Right.
There are multiple steps to ever having a business open for any of these possibilities. So it's not like, oh, we allow it for the planning, so therefore free game, go at it. No, this is very, very different from my understanding.
That's the way I feel about it too. Jim, I think you're muted.
My daughter had run in at one point. I shut the mute on and.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah, just to kind of echo what Eric and David are saying. Yeah, I get the concern, but I haven't even heard the concern from public safety at this point. And if that comes forward, sure, we can have that discussion. But what I'm seeing right now is I know a couple people have been on the cannabis commission. I know that the select board has a host community agreement that needs to be entered into. There has to be special permits from the planning board for every application for this to go in. There has to be state approvals from the cannabis commission. If this is not a situation, and I don't think, based upon what I'm looking at, what we've been told, what we've discussed, where it's simply all Wild West, all holds bar, no holds bar, everybody comes in, we're good to go situation. And yes, it's always fun to say the law of unintended consequences. I get that, but I don't see it as strongly as in this particular instance. It's a situation where I see myself supporting this one, quite frankly. It's not one I hold the same concerns on. And I think it's another revenue source for the town, another option of revenue source for town, but there are lots of fail-safes in position to address the concerns that might be forthcoming. So I'm probably going to support this one. Can I ask, just quickly, on the public gardening areas, say like Watton Street, are those privately controlled, or are those public with leases?
They're obviously town-owned properties. We have multi-year leases, 5-year leases on those properties with private individuals.
Okay, and for things like that, I don't believe the town would be looking to grant grow licenses for cultivation on those particular locations. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I don't think that was contemplated in the license, and I think the improvements you'd have to make, somebody couldn't do without the town's approval, nor could you probably financially do it within the remaining duration of a lease.
And nor could a lease be tacked on with other land owned by someone in the town for available space purposes.
I didn't understand the question.
Well, I'm just, and maybe it's one that I should probably bring up to the planning board. I know there's a discussion about tacking with different properties for the space available and for certain things such as cultivation. And there was some concern that you'd have more than one location, wouldn't be contiguous locations for the amount of square footage you need in order to grow. And I guess my question would be, if someone's say leasing property but owns property somewhere else in town, if they could could use something else that they're leasing in that total amount of square footage they would need in order to accomplish what they're trying to do.
Could I speak to that? Because reading that document about the cobbling together for the craft pot, there's 3 locations. And I believe as long as you have a LLC and those and yeah, you can do it. I think you can do it. But I mean, obviously, if you're leasing town land, then town has something to say about it. But
yeah, that's the concern I had. Not
yeah, right.
Okay.
So, but I tend to think that if you have 3 locations, and you don't necessarily have to own it, but if it's leased and you have an LLC, then you can do it.
You can do it
That's how
subsequent,
I interpreted what I read today.
you can do it subsequent to all the other requirements. So even if it's allowed somehow through a lease of town property, you still got to get a community agreement. You still got to get state approval. You still got to get planning board approval. It just doesn't happen because you have the property.
Okay.
Yes, but they can't turn you down because they just don't
rules.
like you, right? Like you would have to like prove that you would be a major detriment, right? Like the likelihood of it being turned down, if, you know, I just don't think, you know, yes, there are hurdles, but those hurdles get rubber stamped because, you know, unless you're like, you know, contaminating the drinking water, or there's a huge outcry from the neighbors. But the problem is, right, like, and where I am hearing this consistently is people are getting frustrated having to always fight this stuff, right? And that's where they're like, oh, you know, we've got to go fight this, we've got to go fight that because, you know, we didn't expect that. Well, why don't we just do it, you know, just be, if we don't want it in a certain place, or we want certain controls, or we want something, why don't we just propose something that gives, to Kathy's point, gives the power to the town? So then by the time it goes through all these hoops, everybody's already, like, it's what we wanted, as opposed to just kind of opening it all up. I mean, it's, you know, it's, I've heard, you know, people come to me and they said, like, it's so stressful having to fight things, crying, like, and you know where I stand, so.
Yes, it is intuitively obvious to casual observer.
I'm sorry, Jim, I
said it's intuitively obvious to the casual observer.
Yeah. And I also think, like, so what is the money? What are you actually getting? That's why I made the point about the $150,000. Is all of this worth $150,000? Well, $150,000 is better than a sharp stick in the eye, but you know, would it cover the town's extra expenses for whatnot? I don't know. And I would like the types of things that they would require of the applicant to be elaborated upon, like, you know, I mean, I guess they have a few points here about the security and odor and nuisances, but I like them to be a little bit more specific so that we are in the driver's seat.
Well, so I think that I think part of that's addressed in the host community agreement. So I think the concerns that you're talking about are part of what would be put into host. I'm looking at right now at the Cannabis Commission's website, and the basic terms and conditions that are associated with this provide for optional local taxes in addition to the mandatory 6.25% sales tax and 10.75% excise tax. The HCA can impose a 3% local tax on as part of the HCA. Community impact fees. An HCA may include the terms of an optional community impact fee. The fee cannot total more than 3% of the gross annual sales, but must comply with applicable legal requirements. The community impact fees are limited to a period of 5 years, although the parties may consider negotiating a shorter duration. At the close of the term, parties can negotiate a term. The new community impact fee is also capped to 5 years, and so on and so forth. But they talk about possible costs, including municipal inspection, traffic intersection design studies, public safety personnel overtime costs, environmental impact studies, and substance abuse prevention and programming. So all those things are included in the discussion in performing and formulating this HCA. So I think some of those concerns we're talking about are being addressed through these safeguards, such as the hosted community agreement, the state cannabis commission's state approvals, and in the special permit that's issued by the planning board for where this location is being placed. And so I just, there are a lot of things that have been discussed. There's a lot of things that a lot of controls that are in place to help address these kind of concerns.
I guess what I'm saying is, and I'm sorry to say this so frankly, is that I might have a slight lack of confidence that an aggressive stance would be taken by the planning board when coming up with these host agreements.
So
I would like it to be elaborated in advance to ensure that they would take an aggressive approach.
So what your concern then is with is the actions of the planning board and the select board rather than with the actual bylaw itself?
Well, the bylaw, but I would like the bylaw to elaborate to make sure that the strongest approach protecting the town of Chelmsford and our citizens is implemented. I don't see that here. And if it's not here, then I don't know if I have confidence that it's going to happen in the future.
I think that's a slippery slope too. We have elected officials for a reason. We have elections for a reason. There are two boards that are associated with this particular article, the planning board and the select board. They are voted on.
Have they confirmed that though?
Excuse
Have
me,
they confirmed?
Anita, I'll let you speak
It's a
after.
question. Did they confirm that?
After I'm done speaking, I'll certainly entertain your question.
Okay.
All uses require select board host community agreement, state approvals, and a special permit of the planning board. The bylaw as it's written states that the planning board has to have a special permit. There's a select board host agreement that has to be entered into for any of these facilities, and state approval is required. We elect a select board. We just had an election where we elected a select board, and we elected 3 new members, or 2 new members and 1 returning member to our planning board. And at a certain point, we need to look to those people that we have elected for those positions to trust that they're going to put the best interests in place. And if we don't think that they're doing that, that's what the next election's about. What was for. There are a lot of safeguards already in this particular proposed zoning bylaw. I'm looking at this as a finance committee from a financial standpoint. I think it makes, at this point, fiscal sense, especially where there's no retail sales. Although, quite frankly, I'm not even sure I'd be as opposed to retail sales now as I was in the past. I have a problem with saying it's not strong enough because I don't trust other committees, and that's the message I'm kind of hearing from this, and that's my concern.
Well, I appreciate that, and let me step back from that and just say I would like this document to be as strong as possible to reflect what's going to happen in the future. In addition to my other things, I don't think $150,000 equates to it, and I don't think it's appropriate near the Byam School. So those are my 3 things, and I appreciate your feedback or your perspective.
Any further? You want to speak, Anita?
Yeah. So is the bylaw requiring that the select board has to approve the host community agreement? Because there was some confusion on it, and I'm still not sure. I know this says it does, but this is a presentation, so did we clarify that?
Let me pull up the bylaw.
Yeah, I think the state statute requires the select
It
board
does.
to approve the.
Okay,
host
that's what my
community
question was.
I gotta find it here. Hold on.
I believe that was a discussion at the first time Evan came. He said either or, and I know there were some questions on that. So I think he mentioned he went and actually clarified with the state on some of these things. So I'm assuming that's why he changed the presentation to reflect the select board.
We're on 39. Let's go through here. Let's change the terminology. Uh-oh, I've lost. Hold on. I've lost everyone's smiling faces. careful about updating Zoom. That's all I have to say. All right, there we go.
Jim, anywhere in here did they talk about limiting the number of licenses? Because I saw that on the list today of communities, if they had opened it up, but they limited the number of licenses. I don't think I remember hearing them say that they were going to set a limit to these type of businesses.
I don't believe that they had, although is the limit on the type of businesses in general, or is that? I don't know the answer to that. If it's just related to retail, if it's related to all these types of businesses, I don't know.
I'm not sure, but like on the list of towns that, were doing business in this arena, it said 3 different things: banned, zoning, doing it, zoning in place, and then some had the criteria zoning and limit to license. So that made me think that there's specific language.
So on the command camp, I'm sorry, I don't know. I can answer the previous question. So on the Cannabis Control Commission's website, under state law, marijuana establishments and medical marijuana treatment centers must execute host to community agreements with the municipalities in which they plan to operate. So it is a state requirement.
Right, but does that mean that they can execute it with the planning board, or can they execute it with the that's what I'm saying, again, if it's with 5 people versus 10 people, right? And making sure that was my whole issue, right? Like if it's the planning board that's doing the permit, the planning board that'll approve the host, there's no check and balance. And does it have to be is it our bylaw that would say, if it would, can we say that it has to be unanimous, or does it have to just be majority, or is that set up in the state level?
Under guidance for municipalities, it simply states municipalities should be aware of the negotiation of HCCAs may be subject to scrutiny by federal and state law enforcement agencies. The Massachusetts Inspector General can advise municipalities on whether the terms and conditions of the HCA are compliant with the state law. Municipalities are strongly encouraged to seek legal advice for a licensed attorney regarding HCA negotiations. I can't see anything specifically saying. My understanding is select board, but I can't I haven't been able to find anything specifically stating it must be the select board.
Yeah. And we don't know whether it has to be a majority or unanimous. It doesn't. Nothing in the state says that, or our bylaw says that. So
the bylaw doesn't say one way or the other. Your guess is as good as mine on whether or not the state requires a certain. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't draft this and wasn't presented to us. It's not. I'm just not finding anything quickly and easily for an answer. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Do a roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathy?
No.
Anita?
nope.
I'm going to vote yes. So 4, 2, 1 absence. Next article is Article 40, Again, this article is only comes into play if the previous article is supported. And so for ease of time, if you'll just present, Kathy, the article as presented, and we can, I think the discussion will be pretty quick on this.
Okay, great, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend Article 40, the town's amendment to zoning bylaw, Chapter 195, as presented.
A second.
Any discussion? Again, this flows. Article 40 becomes moot if Article 39 does not pass. Article 40 is necessary to change terminology so in the bylaw, so in the zoning bylaw for use purposes, to say change it to marijuana retailer versus the current definition, which would exclude what the change would be. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. David?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Kathy?
No.
Anita?
No.
And I'll vote yes, 4-2, and 1 absence. Article 41, again, same deal, but on the town general bylaw. So it's not, again, a change to the prohibition.
I make a motion that we accept, no, I make a motion that we, my gosh, my mind is, I've had enough here.
I know. It's only 9:20 too. I mean, we're a lot earlier than most years.
I know. I make a motion that we recommend Article 41 to see if the town will vote to delete Chapter 89 marijuana establishments of the town code, which would eliminate the prohibition of non-medical marijuana establishments from the town's general bylaws as described and presented in the planning board report or act in relation thereto.
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. David?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Amina?
Yes.
Kathy?
No.
Anita?
No.
I'll vote yes, 4-2, 1 absent. All right, 42, which if I'm not mistaken, is the final article.
Woohoo. Okay, I make a motion that we recommend Article 42 to see if the town will vote to accept as many of the following mentioned streets as laid out by the select board and shown by reports and plans duly filed in the office of the town clerk. Streets listed and provided in all the construction of the same lease with requirement of the select board and subject to the withholding of any remaining bonds until such requirements have been met. Authorize the select board to acquire any and all temporary and or permanent easements in any property in free simple with the trees therein by purchase, eminent domain, gift or otherwise for the purposes of securing traffic safety and road improvements. Raise and appropriate transfer appropriate from and appropriate from the stabilization fund and or borrow a certain sum of money to defray all necessary costs, fees, and expenses in connection with the acquisition of said land for paying any damages which may be awarded as a result of any such taking. And D, authorize the select board to negotiate and execute all necessary and proper contracts and agreements thereto or act in relation thereto.
Second.
Discussion. Now, this is it was skipped last year for obvious reasons, but this is a continuation of Chapter 90. As Steve mentioned, this is not we're down to oddball roads, so it's not a whole lot of mileage is being added, but it needs to be taken care of. And now we're getting to ones where it gets a little bit more interesting as to what needs to be done, what conditions needs to be met in order for them to be accepted as town roads. So just to clean, if we're clean up our purposes, I support this. This is one of those normal ones. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Roll call vote, David,
Yes.
Amina,
Yes,
Eric,
Yes,
Kathy,
Yes.
Anita,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes, so that's 6 with 1 absence. All right, so that brings us to the end of the warrant articles as they currently stand, with a few that we have taken no action on, which may require action prior to town meeting in June. As was previously mentioned, next on our agenda is a review of the reporting schedule. So I believe it, although it may not be set in stone, it looks very likely that the town meeting is going forward on June 17th. But I think we should still endeavor to get our recommendations out sooner rather than later, and then we can certainly amend in the future anything we need to that comes through with the items that have either no action or anything that arises between now and then, whenever town meeting starts. So we would, like I said, we expect that to be June 17th. So with that in mind, those that have opposing positions on certain articles, I would ask that you put together, as we have in the last couple of years, some talking points or even a paragraph that can be added into the warrant article book for the Finance Committee handbook, so that those positions can be made known in there. And I think it has helped in answering some questions when people come up and ask why people voted certain ways. They can certainly look into, at least initially, our Finance Committee handbook to see what the discussions were. And then the questions that come at town meeting might be a little bit more pointed. So if you could, I'd appreciate those, and those that you have voted, and which ones and where there might be deviation. So I'd appreciate that.
When did you want those by, Jim?
It's so normally if we had a April 29th or 28th or whatever it is town meeting, or 26th, whatever it was currently scheduled, I guess, we'd really want to get them out next week. But I think in all the discussions that have happened in the last few weeks, I believe that June 17th is the date that's being supported, proposed, and brought forth. Be that as it may, I think within the next week, if we can get those together and try to get stuff together, just so we have something out there that can be reviewed, put together, and we'll try to hone and tweak in the interim.
this is where I give a plug to Pam and her amazing minutes. Pam, do you know when the minutes from tonight might be available?
No idea. It's actually not as bad as it could have been. So probably maybe within a week.
Okay, so why don't we do this then? Let's plan on not having any sort of final book going around until at least we've had an opportunity to take a look at the meeting minutes from this meeting. That's a good point, Eric. Thank you. So that if there are any questions that pop up, we can certainly come back to the recording of this meeting if we have to for any further elucidation. But that's a good point. Thanks, Eric. Any further questions on that reporting schedule? Okay. All right. Discuss plans for upcoming meetings. So, like we said, we have a couple of no actions that may have action prior to town meeting. And if the target date is the June 17th date, that June 3rd does make the most sense, that Thursday evening for a meeting. That way it's 2 weeks ahead of the town meeting. We've been enough time to add additional information and do something if we actually have to any voting we might have there. I don't think we'll need anything else in the interim other than that one meeting prior to town meeting. And usually we won't have one prior to the end of this fiscal year, unless there is some need to do in the last first 15 days of the next fiscal year to do some sort of adjustment, which involves approval of Finance Committee. Like I'd say, in the 7 years that I've been on FinCom, we've not needed that, and that should be a testament to the financial workings of the town and the town office. That we haven't had to come in and make any adjustments on those first 15 days of the fiscal year that the Finance Committee should come in and approve with the Select Board per the statute. So barring any unforeseen pop-ups in the interim, I think looking at that early June meeting, and then we will not be meeting again then until August, either in a tri-board setting or in our first meeting for the fall preparation. Do we have any public comment?
Can I just ask a question? And this may have to be moved to next agenda or something, but as people are getting shots and there's some talk about us meeting in person, is there the ability that if someone's traveling, we could still Zoom them in? There have been that being allowed?
Yeah, I mean, there's always been allowed for remote participation, even prior to the pandemic. Now with Zoom, it's even enhanced. But what we're hearing from is that we expect that coming out of the pandemic, the legislature will probably permanently alter the state laws to allow this type of remote participation to continue in the future. It's been very well received, and a lot of communities are actually saying it enhances, in some respects, public participation by allowing the remote participation. So I think we're going to see more of this in the future.
Okay, thank you.
So whereas we had just a phone-in option before, which worked to varying degrees, we'll have the Zoom capability going forward. So the town is maintaining the license going forward with CTM and everything like that. Okay, that's good to know. I know on the judicial side, I know the courts are looking into continuing with these types of things, looking at what makes the most sense. So on a state level as well, there have been pluses and minuses for sure, but a lot of the pluses, I think they're looking to continue on. So this is, I think, Zoom has now become, or a variant of Zoom, whatever other platform is used in other instances, it's going to be continuing. I don't think it's gone away. I think it's here to stay.
And as was noted earlier, telemedia is in the process of modifying rooms 204 and 205 permanent this type of operation. So you could be a situation where somebody was traveling, could come in on Zoom, and the other members could be in the room as well as the public, having this ability.
No longer excuses not to attend.
So David can go to Florida during February and attend.
Hey!
I thought I could hide out. So this is not good news.
You could be poolside with a cocktail chatting with us.
You don't want to see that. No.
All right. That's a good point, Anita. Thank you for bringing that up. And because I know to varying degrees, people have had their vaccines or had their first vaccines. Some have not had any vaccines yet. And so it's still a sliding scale. There's still a period that we're going through. And what it'll look like at that point, we don't know. I'm not seeing any other members of the public. Any other public comment planned?
I just had a question as to when would you be wanting a printed copy of the warrant book to be ready?
I think it's as soon as possible, with the practicality that we want to look at your minutes to make sure we're not missing anything in our discussions and reviewing our book. So I guess theoretically in the next few weeks, in order to produce the book and to print it out. So if again, I think it's been batted back and forth. There's been a lot of discussion about it, but I think that June 17th seems like a foregone conclusion. And so if that's the case, we're certainly ahead of schedule if we're providing a book in 3 weeks or so.
So Jim, so we're definitely meeting June 3rd. Are we going to plan on 6:30 or 7:30?
Ideally, I think we should try to continue with the 6:30 if that's worked for people. I hesitate to say it's set in stone just because I just don't know what everybody's daily life might look like in a month and a half. Because it might be difficult again, depending on people, if people are going to the office more often or in meetings and things like that, for us to start the 6:30, which has now been available to us the past year. So I'd like to. I think that would be a good time. I don't want to say yes, definitely, and then have to backtrack on it until we have a better understanding a little closer.
And are we assuming that we're going to still be virtual?
I don't, that's the other question. I can't say for sure if that's the case. And if we aren't virtual, if that includes any public participation in person, I don't know, because it hasn't been lifted yet. We couldn't do it in those rooms currently. I don't know. I think we're too far out to say for sure. All right, any other comment? Press questions? I'm not seeing any press online. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor, just a hand raise is fine.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Night. Thank
Good
you.
In June.